seems like they were just pawns. They were being used and passed around over and over again by these different companies and stuff, and it's really unfortunate.
Howdy Meowers! My name is Orchestra, and welcome back to another episode of the BlushCat podcast.
Wow, hello everyone. What a fantastic name, Orchestra.
Thank you.
I love it. What are we doing today on this fine day?
Today, out of all days, we are bringing you the TOOpisode.
What? The long-awaited TOOpisode of 2020?
That's right. We are talking about TOO/TO1.
That's right. And I see now where you got your name, Orchestra. I understand.
Yes. And if you Meowers don't understand, you probably will by the end of this episode, because we are going to be covering everything from debut or pre-debut to disbandment today. So we've got a lot to talk about. It's going to be spicy. It's going to be a little bit much if you were together. And yeah, so we're going to try to just talk about it and talk about TOO, TO1, because we never really dedicated an episode to them before. And now, like I said, they have disbanded. So yeah, when else are we going to talk about then? What went wrong, truly? I think I have a few ideas. But should we give a slight disclaimer?
Sure, disclaim all you want.
Okay, I am going to disclaim that I am not a together at this point, okay? I'm sorry to say that since the new lineup and all the changes went down, I kind of just stopped, focusing on this group. I'm sorry to say that. So if any together hardcore fans are listening to this, please spare us and know that, I could be totally uninformed about some stuff, or I don't know if I'm remembering stuff wrong, but I would like to also say that I was there since kind of debut started, like right at their debut. And so I kind of know a good bit of what actually happened and what went down. So I'm going to be kind of going off of memory for most of this, but I did look at the, what would you call it? The the page with all the information and like the timeline of
the wiki.
Yeah, like the wiki. But I was there for most of it. I just didn't remember all of it, and I wanted to have some dates. So that's kind of the disclaimer that I've got.
Okay. Yeah, and it's a little bit rough because nobody likes to hear that someone was a fan of a group and or was, following along with them, and that then member lineup changes happen and then the person's not a fan anymore. But it's not like we wanted them to disband after that or anything. It's not like we were like, oh, shut down the group. It's just kind of like we, it was a little, I wasn't even there for any of it that much, but yeah, it can just be sort of like, oh, that's kind of a bad thing that happened that is just changing the group to a way that it's not really something I'm interested in anymore. So you kind of have to just be like,
yeah,
I guess that's what happened.
In the first place, I was never the biggest TOO or TO1 fan, I guess, but I did watch a lot of their content.
You were definitely rooting for them and stuff.
Right. And so it was a newer group that I was interested in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think at this point, we can just ask you to, just remember the good times with us after we get through all of what actually happened with this group.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I guess we should start now with World Klass and the TOO debut.
Okay. So what exactly is or was World Klass with a K?
Yes, a World Klass was, of course, an mnet survival program. Okay,
of course.
So mnet is a big part of TOO/TO1. And that, it says a lot.
Yeah, it's a bit unfortunate.
Yeah. So this program, World Klass, aired from October to December 2019, and it was supposed to create this 10-member boy group that would be called 10-Oriented Orchestra, aka TOO. So yeah, there's that. So I think the show had like a voting system, but I didn't actually watch the show. I did go and watch a couple clips once like TOO debuted, but I'm not really sure if there was some sort of other system in place that decided who made it into the group. But I think it's important to know
bribery,
that
corruption,
that there
nepotism.
was that there was a voting system. So people watched this show and were supposed to decide the people that they wanted in this group, okay? But already this group, okay, there is so much that went down with this group, and it's starting from before they even debuted. So 2 days after the lineup was announced, after the show was over, there was somebody that made it into the group and got 3rd place, but they had some sort of scandal, so they replaced him with Jaeyoon, who had the next highest number of votes. And Jaeyoon is the person who got 1st place on the show, so there's a Jaeyoon and a Jaeyoon. Don't confuse the two.
Jaeyoon wasn't even going to be in the group? That's
No,
crazy.
I know.
He seems so prominent.
Yeah, he's like a main vocal, and, you know, it kind of would have made more sense for them to have him in the lineup, in my opinion. Like, he just seems like he was supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So that was already something that was weird. How did this person who got 3rd place originally make it through the entire show and nobody brought up like the so-called scandal that he had?
Bribery.
Like, I don't
corruption.
know. That's already weird to me.
Nepotism.
Yes.
All of these, that I'm in no way trying, this is a joke, first of all, and second
It's
of
a
all,
joke.
I'm in no way trying to hint at the fact that, like, oh, these things were like known things, and I'm just like, hey, you know about that nepotism? No, I'm just saying, like, mnet in general is very untrustworthy, so I'm just throwing out like possible ways in which something could have been manipulated.
Yeah.
But I don't know anything about it.
So, yeah, that was World Klass, and then TOO debuted. They debuted on April 1st, 2020.
Oh, well,
with the
goodness
song
gracious.
with the song Magnolia.
Magnolia.
Do 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 do.
Maybe that's the key of this whole thing. The entire time, TOO was just a joke. It's just a prank, guys. April Fools. Like, it went on for this whole time, and then it disbanded, and we should have known this whole time was the longest April Fool's joke.
Well, maybe. I don't know. It's kind of a horrible joke.
Yeah, no,
But,
that's horrible. Unless everyone got paid millions of dollars to be a part of it. We'll never know.
There was already another issue, though, okay?
Oh, God.
Because they were supposed to debut on March 18th, but there were some conflicts for some reason, and they rescheduled their debut to April 1st.
Oh, my God.
So already just issue after issue. Now, let's move on already to Road to Kingdom and their first comeback.
I know what you're thinking. Wait, we're moving on to them being on another, like, survival show already, but you just mentioned their debut. Exactly.
Exactly. That's the key here. And it's a pattern, okay? You're going to be hearing more about this and more about survival shows. Now, back in the day, we talked about Road to Kingdom. If you're a longtime listener, you would know. But we're going to talk about it again. We're bringing it back. So, Road to Kingdom, you guessed it, another mnet survival show. And the first episode was actually filmed before TOO debuted. They were announced as part of the lineup on March 20th, and episode 1 aired April 30th. So they kind of made it past the elimination in that, but they didn't get like the top spot or anything like that. And then in July, after Road to Kingdom was over, they had a comeback with Count 1-2. And this was their last comeback as TOO. So let's talk more about Road to Kingdom, more about their first comeback.
Yes, so you might think, if you're not familiar with the show, that, you know, this is just the way that the show went with these groups like this. But TOO was the only group to be in this situation. The other groups were established groups, and the whole point of the show was gathering together some long-time established groups that had not had like a first win or enough recognition yet. And TOO like literally walk out there episode 1 to be introduced as part of the show, and the other groups that are sitting there are like, who are these people? Because they hadn't even debuted yet. So it's like, not only were they on another mnet survival show immediately after their debut, or like, you know, kind of during their debut, but it wasn't even the type of show that made sense for them to be on, you know, compared to what the show is for.
Right. So I don't really remember how I found out about TOO. I think that I heard about them actually on Twitter before I even knew they were going to be in Road to Kingdom. But I was planning on watching Road to Kingdom once I knew about it because of Pentagon and The Boys. Those were the two groups that I was a fan of at the time. But I remembered seeing stuff, and I thought that they were going to be some sort of orchestra K-pop group because of their name. But then I was like, okay, now this group is being like going to be on Road to Kingdom, but I thought they just debuted or didn't even debut yet. I don't know. I'm confused. So I don't really remember how exactly I found out about TOO, but the first kind of content I guess I saw with them is obviously Road to Kingdom. So they did some performances on that. They weren't my favorite, but I really liked Rising Sun, and I thought it was really good. I still think that they had some cool parts in that performance. What about you?
Yeah, I think overall, like, when I first saw the show and when I saw their performances and when I saw those performances against some of the other groups that were there, I definitely thought, you know, okay, they're maybe not going to be one of the top contenders for me or anything. But going back to the performances and seeing them like isolated, you know, I wasn't comparing them to the other people's performances. I still did think that they were like really impressive for a group that hadn't done anything yet, you know?
Yeah.
Like they had probably like filmed a music video and like that was it. They hadn't done any performances for people yet, you know, they hadn't done any of that stuff. And so I think performance wise, and I don't think that they were singing live a lot of the time, but still their energy, like their stage presence was pretty good usually, I'd say. So like for a group that was very, very, very new, I thought that.
Yeah. I thought that it was funny how many times they had to do Magnolia because that was basically their only song. It was their only title track. And it's like, okay, this week we're doing Magnolia, then next week we're doing Magnolia the remix, and then the week after we're doing Magnolia remix but differently.
Like, we're doing Magnolia mashed up with somebody else's song.
Yeah. So that was funny, and you know, I was getting good vibes from them generally as a group on that show. Like their reactions were funny and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that the group vibes, like, yeah, I don't know how else to say it. The vibes, like the overall, like, you know, energy, aura, like, those aren't exactly the right word. I don't necessarily mean they're emotional, you know, like, oh, the vibes, like they're really chill people or something. I mean like the mix of like the different types of people that they had. That was really good. Let's just keep that in mind. Okay. I feel like it was really good. It was like they seemed very cohesive, but it was varied, you know, like there was some differences, some differentiation, and it was like, oh, that's the person that's like that, and then oh, that's the person that's this way. Like it just seemed like everybody went together nicely, but there was a lot of variety.
Okay. So now let's talk a little bit about Count 1 2, which was their second title track and their first comeback song.
1, 2, countdown.
Exactly. A bop. A fun bop.
It really
Complete
is.
opposite of Magnolia that they debuted with. I was there for it though. You know, I was like, why can't we all just have fun with this? Like, this group was on Road to Kingdom right after they debuted, and they had some good performances, and now they've got this fun song for the summer, and just enjoy it. So that's what I was doing. And then they started to have some more content on their YouTube channel at that time too that I was watching and enjoying.
Yeah, well, I thought that, Magnolia was a little bit, Magnolia vibes. Count 1 2, I was actually like, I was here for, I was like, this is actually, it is a bop. Like, and I really was a fan of them doing the huge, complete opposite concept shift for their second thing. It's like, show everyone you can do this one thing and then immediately show them that you could do the opposite so that they don't expect you to be like doing the one thing. A lot of people debut with the 2-2 method or whatever, where they do the same thing for the first 2 and then they change. But then other times, it's the first thing and then a complete opposite. I'm here for that.
Yeah. They also had a really good B-side on that album, and it was called Step by Step, and I just want to shout that song out because I like that song, and I thought they did a good job because they promoted that song as well on music shows and stuff.
And that one is like a third genre, like a third vibe.
Yeah,
that one's like nighttime classy. So they have like like tough dark, they have light fun, and then they have nighttime classy.
Yeah.
And another important thing to note at this point is I think they pulled off all 3 concepts very well. I think the variety of the members of the group and their different styles led to each of these concepts really working, and you never felt like, oh, should this group really be doing this concept? There was always the right people to bring to the forefront, and like everyone was good at blending into it, even if it wasn't like what you would typically think that person's style was. Everyone held their own. So yeah
I agree, but like I said, that was the last comeback as TOO. So now it's time to move on to talking about the rebrand as TO1.
Now, to be fair, if you tried to search on YouTube TOO, you couldn't find anything.
Right. It was really difficult.
So it was maybe not the best name.
Yeah. So TO1 had this, it gets even more, just wild, and like there's just a bunch of nonsense from here as far as like the management of this group goes. So we already know that they were on 2 mnet survival shows already. In January 2021, we found out that their company NCH is no longer managing TOO because they were still TOO then, okay? But now CJE&M, which has mnet, so it's like this big, huge, like CJE&M has so much stuff.
Yeah, it's like even bigger than an entertainment company. It's like, I don't even know, like, would you call it like as big as like an Amazon type of like company? Like, I'm not saying it's like Amazon, but like the fact that Amazon owns so many other things. Maybe it's kind of like that. Like they have like a lot of things.
Yeah. So now CJE&M fully manages TOO, and that whole like dispute caused another album delay. So it was just like a very messy situation, and the members even like, it kind of seemed like they were showing their opposition to this management shift. Like they were doing V-Lives and being like, oh, we love our company and like stuff like that. So it seemed like they really didn't want to be fully under this new management, but who's to really know what was going on? Then on March 28th, 2021, they announced the rebrand to TO1 at KCON of all places.
Oh my god.
Like, just imagine you're there to have a good time, enjoy TOO and their 2 songs, and they're like, surprise, we're TO1 now. Like, how awful.
Yeah, and so this is just about a year after their debut, right? Well, like, not after. It's like just before a year after their debut, right?
Right.
Okay.
And it wouldn't be awful if we didn't know, you know, like, to just rebrand isn't that, like, huge of a thing for that new of a group, unless you know what comes with all of that.
Right.
So, they had, like, a concept shift, which is kind of the obvious thing that changed. So, kind of a lost plot with the whole value thing. Like, since JU got first place in World Class, his value was benevolence, and so their first album with Magnolia was Benevolence. And they didn't do that, though, even with the second comeback, or the first comeback with Count 1, 2. So they kind of lost it already then. I don't know. It seemed like a really strong concept planned out with all these values. Completely lost. We only got one of those.
Oh god.
Yeah.
I even knew about any of that.
Yeah. The big thing, though, that I was really bothered by is that the rebrand made all of the social media posts and all of the old V Lives just disappear.
Oh my god.
I was so annoyed when the V Lives disappeared. I was like, I seriously thought they were going to, like, come back. But it just was like, you know, because they had to change the name of everything, it was going to take a while or something. I don't know, but they were all gone. The TOO fan cafe closed and they opened the TO1 fan cafe instead of just changing, like, the name of it. You know, DKZ had a very similar situation. They had a complete rebrand. They had member lineup changes, stuff like that, which we're going to talk about with TO1. But, you know, they at least kept all their old content. They have the same fan cafe. Stuff like that. That TO1, it didn't happen that way with them.
Yeah, it wasn't, with DKZ, it wasn't like the history of donkeys was erased. You could still see all of that.
Yeah.
But TOO, the only thing is the music videos, right? That's left behind.
Yeah.
Which is kind of crazy because I feel like... you know, I was an outsider, but still I feel like that was what TOO had. Like, they had their own stuff that they were uploading, like, you know, because they were so new. Like, it's not like they had a whole bunch of other things that you could go and watch. They had just, like, the stuff that they made, right?
Yeah. So it was really annoying, and I was like, what is happening? Why did they have to do it that way? So that's just another weird move by the company. Like, if you're gonna rebrand, why would you get rid of literally everything? So that was so weird. And on April 1st, they had the Rebloom V Live, which, as we know, April 1st is TOO's anniversary.
God.
So they called it Rebloom. And it's kind of like, yeah, it is our debut anniversary, but also it's like kind of not anymore because everything from beforehand has kind of been erased now. So it's like, we're not really supposed to even talk about our old songs. So yeah, like they didn't do Magnolia or Count 1, 2. Like, they had to get rid of the other songs that they did too.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Because, like, it was same thing, like, DKZ literally have done new versions of those old songs. Like, they weren't, you know, erased in any way.
Yeah.
They're like, we'll literally record a new version too. Like,
yeah. So, once again, we're bringing up CJ&M because on May 18th, 2021, they were announced to now be under Wake One, which you've probably heard us talk about before. And so Wake One is a subsidiary of CJ&M. And yeah, this is even more of like where it's going downhill, because at this point we all know how awful Wake One is. It's like, no, does anybody like that company? I don't think so. And then May 20th, 2021 was TO1's first comeback under like the Rebrand. So they had the title track Son of Beast and the Reborn EP. So they're really going with, Rebloom, Reborn. It's a whole thing.
It's not working.
It's not working. We're not going to forget TO1.
Yeah.
So yeah, they had that first new comeback, re-debut, whatever you want to call it, in May. And then in November, they had another comeback called No More X. That was the title track. And they had the Realize EP. So still doing this whole re-theme. And this was the last comeback with TO1 before some more changes. So what did you think about those two comebacks that they had?
It's not good. It's not. things are looking down at this point. They're getting a bit darker, the outlook for me personally. I just didn't really care for either of these songs very much. And I thought a little bit, maybe it's kind of just like Magnolia. I didn't really care about that one either. But Magnolia did have a sense of iconicness about it. And then these two new ones, it was all right, but, just not really anything to write home about. And they're also very they're both the same concept. And so now it's kind of like, well, where's all of the variety that you had before? It's sort of just like, is this going to be the concept now? Because you had two other concepts at least that you did, and you did them really well. And then also, can we take a pit stop to back to their KCON days? Because they did such an iconic performance at KCON of Twice, I Can't Stop Me. And that is, another thing that they just owned. It's so iconic, and it's yet another genre, showing another variety that they can do. And it seems like with these two comebacks, it's are they just sort of going to ignore all of these other styles and things that they can do and just be doing this tough boy concept?
Right.
It's cars and toughness.
Yeah, it's the very default basic boy group sort of style, honestly. I am sorry to say it, but it just is.
Yeah.
So personally, I didn't really like Son of Beast at all as a title. No More X, it has its moments. It's good.
I think it's a little catchier.
Yeah. But the concepts for me, I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't this is so perfect for TO1.
Right.
This is so great for the members. It suits them so well. I wasn't like that at all. But I do think that they had better B-sides. They've got some really nice B-sides, I think. And I know at least lyrically, the members were actually participating in those. So that was nice.
Yeah, that's always good to hear.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the B-sides.
Okay, well, as far as the general music videos, concepts overall, not feeling it. And I was like, what happened? Is this the direction we're staying in? This darker sort of concept? I don't know. We'll have to see. But as you know, we didn't see. We didn't see with that lineup anyway, because there were some member lineup changes to TO1, TOO as we knew it.
And we're all thinking the same thing. Why didn't they do these member lineup changes when they did the rebrand and when they gave them a new group name? If, in fact, this is what was going to be going down, why not rip the Band-Aid off, do everything at the same time?
Yeah.
That's what DKZ did, It's okay, new group, new people. Okay, we understand what's going on.
Yeah.
This is okay, new group, new name, but same people. And now all of a sudden it's oh no, the people are changing too. It's what? But you had two comebacks with the other people already with this name.
Yeah. So these, the changes to the TO1 lineup actually happened at a pretty similar time to the whole DKZ Donkeys thing. So it was interesting, and I was like, what is actually happening right now? Like, Devin, you have to look at all these groups, like, what's going on? So actually, Woonggi, you probably have heard us talk about Woonggi before. We'll bring him up again later in this episode, and the reason you've probably heard us talk about him. But he had actually been on a hiatus since like the end of December 2021, so after their No More X comeback happened, and we haven't heard from him. Suddenly, on April 30th, 2022, this was 2 years after episode 1 of Road to Kingdom aired on mnet, Jihoon, he departed the group. Do we know why? No. We didn't get a reason. It was just like, yeah, TO1's Jihoon is no longer in TO1. He's leaving.
Which, if you don't know, I feel like that's a very weird thing. Like, it's very uncommon for a member to leave a group and for people to not have any more information.
Yeah.
Usually it's explained. This person is leaving this group. This is the reason why. Not just this person is leaving the group. Good luck. Like,
yeah. So that's another weird, bad thing that happened. Then, on May 24th, 2022, there is just such a cryptic message, honestly, from Wake One. It might have been on the fan cafe, but I don't remember. And the fan cafe, okay, it's a place that you have to, like, sort of apply to get into. So, like, I was in the TOO and the TO1 fan cafes, and it's like, so this is a place where not the general public can access. So it was common for Wake One to post important information on this, and it's like, yeah, it would have been great if you could post that in a place where everybody would be able to see it.
Right, because the fan cafe, you have to prove that you are a fan. You have to prove by possibly answering questions, like, you know, quiz. You have to prove that you've purchased certain items, like, you know, this, you supported the group. It can be any kind of things like that. So
right, like the
not
process.
anyone can just be like, oh, let me hop over there and start spamming this chat.
Yeah, like the process for getting into fan cafes is different for every group or artist that has one. But, you know, it's not the kind of place where you want to be announcing messages that the general public or, you know, general fans would want to know about and want to see.
Yeah.
So they announced, Week 1 announced a pause for all of TO1's activities, and they were going to take time to, like, reorganize the group. Whatever all that means. But that means that they weren't doing lives anymore. They weren't making tweets. They weren't, you know, they weren't doing anything during this time.
They're basically like in lockdown, quarantine.
Yeah.
Like, don't have a job right now.
Yeah. So it was really weird, and everybody was like, what is going on? Jihoon just left suddenly, and now this, like, I don't know what's happening. So, to give another specific date, June 17th, 2022, we get the message that Min-soo, Jerome, who we now know he's just using his actual name, Seongmin, and Woonggi leave TO1, and they introduced 3 new members, Daigo, Renta, and Yeojung. So they were added. TO1 is now 9 members. 4 of the original 10-member lineup that debuted left, and Daigo and Renta are Japanese, and they competed on season 2 of Produce 101 Japan. So, I know it's a lot to take in if you have no idea about this group at all.
I mean, it's a lot to take in even if you do know about the group. It's
true.
Just, this is a journey.
It is.
This is why we needed a TOOpisode.
Right. And so, yeah, that's that. Now we're on to TO1, the new batch, as we like to call it. As we like to call it with DKZ, old batch and new batch. I'm sorry if that's offensive to anybody. It's not supposed to be offensive.
It's supposed to help lighten the mood.
Right. So they had the... okay, well, actually, let me just clarify a little bit. We know that Seongmin and Woonggi, at least, are still in Wake 1. The other members are not, Jihoon and Min-soo. So We don't know what they're doing though.
Right.
They're just back to being trainees at this point.
Can we take a moment? When the 3 people left after Chihoon, Wake One did give a slight bit more explanation about them leaving, right? They said like we're going with a different direction that they're not like suited for.
Yes, correct.
Which
or
is
like something along those lines. Which
it's important to note.
Yeah. So now let's talk about like the new batch and their first comebacks. You could sort of call it a re-debut again in a way, because the lineup is so different at this point. So they had that comeback July 28th, 2022, and the title track was Drummin', and they had the EP Why Not along with that. So this is a whole thing, and the next, I'm gonna say that their next EP had the title track Freeze Tag. So that was in November of 2022. So they released 2 EPs as New Batch TO1. And yes, 2 and that's it. So I was very surprised when Drummond came out because I was like, okay, this is so similar to Count 1-2 in like the vibe, spirit, brightness aspect. And I'm like, why couldn't Seongmin, Minsu, and Woonggi do this concept? Why does anybody want to explain that to me? They would have fit this concept more than some of the other ones they were doing. Probably, maybe they pulled off the other ones well. I'm not saying that, but like it just seemed like
basically in the group, the people that stayed in the group, a lot of them were more fitting vibe-wise if you were like, being sort of objective about it and not trying to be like, oh no, they're great with everything. You'd say they'd be more fitting vibe-wise for Magnolia, No More X, the darker, tougher ones. The people that left, Minsu, Jerome, Woonggi, were the people in the group that you would think were more suited for the bright and light concepts. So now for them to come back with Drummond being like really like happy, colorful, like, we're just drumming.
Yeah.
It seems like fans would be confused. You said that these people had to leave because they wouldn't fit the new concept, but then they see the new concept and they're like, what are you talking about? This was their concept. Like,
yeah.
You would have thought that they were going to do something like really like, hardcore, dark, like Vicks or something maybe, if you thought that those people weren't going to be in it. But that's not what they had.
Which actually, they could still pull that off. Like, that would be really cool to see like Seongmin cover Vicks. I'm here for that.
Definitely from seeing Seongmin and Woonggi both on seeing them on Boys Planet, even seeing them before pull off all the songs and concepts that they did, you could see on this show even more like clearly that they can do different concepts like easily.
Yeah. So Drummond made no sense to me. Is it like a fun song? Yeah. Was I enjoying it? Is it something I listen to regularly? No. And that's why this is like what made me, fade out of being interested or like invested in TO1. Seongmin was my bias. Jerome, Woonggi brought so many vibes. He really seemed to love being an idol. Like, I just really enjoyed it. I just really enjoyed like the vibes of the group with them in it. And so when they weren't in it anymore, I felt like the vibe and like brand of the group that I knew was kind of lost.
Yeah, it seemed like content-wise, they were also very prominent. Some members can kind of like be not as prominent when it comes to like the entertainment aspect, but especially Woonggi, he seemed like really like if people liked TO1 for those vibes, like they were missing a lot then once he was gone. I don't even know if I had heard Freeze Tag before like yesterday. I saw the music video and I was like, this does not seem familiar to me at all. But you know what did seem familiar to me? The sound of the whole thing, because it sounded exactly like Drummond.
Yeah.
So it's pertinent to talk about them at the same time because it seems like basically the same thing. So yeah, it kind of just seems to me like at this point, I was going to say Wake One, but I mean, it was Wake One, but also just in general, their whole journey as a group just seemed like a desperate attempt for all of these different companies to like make something that would be a hit and that would take off, and they had no actual like thought or care about the group. Like they had no vision for the group. They're just like, let's change it again, oh, the name must have been bad, let's change it, oh, the people must have been bad, let's change it. And then what they ended up with in the end, not to be rude to all of the people, like the new members and everything included, but what they ended up with in the end to me just seems so generic and basic. Like they took away all of the like flavor that TOO started with. They replaced the members that were like adding like a different vibe with members that, you know, and I never watched the content with the new people, so I don't know how they were in that capacity, but just like when you see the music videos and stuff, it just seems so like same, you know, like nothing seems like, it doesn't seem like I described the first way I described TOO. It seems very much like, oh, you know, people really liked JU. Let's try and get a couple more people that are like JU. You know, like let's just try and make a group of JUs. Or like I'm pointing him out just because I know that he was popular and stuff. But it seems like they were just trying to like do whatever was most popular by the time we get to the end of this. Whereas it originally seemed like there was a bit of, you know, an artistic vision, a bit of like a group uniqueness and stuff like that. So
yeah, exactly. Like this is just our opinion. Like if you really liked, you know, the new batch of TO1 and the stuff they were putting out, we're not trying to insult you or your tastes or anything like that, or the group or any of the members, but to disclaim once again, I don't even know the new members at all. And the new songs, Freeze Tag, I'm pretty sure I only heard it once, or at least I only saw the music video once, because I'm like, it is a very default concept, and it's very similar to Drummond. And, you know, like I said, it was kind of hurting to not see some of my favorite members in it anymore. And like, I do think I listened to the Why Not EP, and I like some of the songs from that, but I don't even think I listened to this last EP from them. And I'm gonna say right now, on March 9th, 2023, they released their last thing. Their last release from TO1 was a Hug single, the song Hug from TVXQ. So this was just a remake, and it was their last release. So
that's depressing.
I don't even think I ever heard that.
I didn't hear it either.
Yeah, so I have nothing to really go off from this point, but it's just not my taste anymore.
Yeah, like it just the other thing, like I feel like if that was the group's starting point and then they moved forward from that, maybe I would have, you know, had a better like viewpoint of it. But to see like the group starting somewhere else and then devolving into that, like it makes it seem more negative. But it probably could have also just been like, I feel like if people started to be a fan at that point, they'd be like, oh, this group is cute and fun, you know, we like this. It's like, it's not like they were doing anything terrible.
Right.
It's just that it's weird because it's not like the way that the group started at all. It doesn't seem like the original vision in any way, and it seems like they were just pawns. They were being used and passed around over and over again by these different companies and stuff, and it's really unfortunate.
Yeah, so we're gonna get to like the concept again a little bit later, but the last sort of bit of information about this new batch of TL1 as we're kind of winding down, because it's already like the end of the year, is that Renta, one of the new members, he left TL1 on September 22nd, 2023 via a letter on his personal Instagram. So once again, incompetence from Wake 1, letting the fans or even general public know about another member leaving.
That's just wild. It's just
like silence
crazy.
On that one. That's just really pathetic from the company. Like, I have no words to describe how that doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen. They're like, oh, you want to leave? Oh, okay, you can tell them. Go ahead. You tell them.
So, yeah, that's kind of that chunk. Now we're going to talk about BlushCat and TO1 Pact and the TO1 disbandment, unfortunately. Okay, so after like months of silence, we are finally seeing that Seongmin and Woonggi were going to compete as trainees on another mnet survival program, making this, I think, like the third mnet survival show for them. Is that right?
Yeah.
So, okay, whatever. I'm like, okay, I'm already watching it because of Hui. I'm gonna support Seongmin and Woonggi. But they didn't make it to the finals. But soon after the show ended, they did both leave Wake 1. Hooray.
Yeah, it's a celebratory thing, I suppose, at this point.
Yeah. So to just get the rest of the information out of the way, then we'll talk about it more. Seongmin, as we know, and we already talked about it, he re-debuted on November 30th in 2023 in TO1 Pact. So you can go ahead and check out TO1 Pact, support Seongmin, and listen to the BlushCat episode where we talk about TO1 Pact's debut. And on December 17th, Wake 1 announced that TO1 will disband on December 31st, 2023, and that none of the members will renew the contracts.
It's crazy to think that happened as recently as it did.
Yeah.
Because the last time that TO1 had anything, it seemed like it was a good bit before that.
Yeah. Like their last EP was, like a year before that, and they really hadn't been doing anything as far as I know.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So BlushCat, we already talked about, but we're going to talk about it more just a little bit because we did get to see even more versatility from Seongmin and Woonggi. We got to see how much they really wanted it, how much they wanted to be idols still and have a group. And that's something that I knew as a fan of them and TO1. Like, I could tell that they enjoyed doing what they were doing. So they just wanted to be able to keep doing that. But it seems like nobody really cared.
Yeah, I don't understand at all the reason that they left the group. Like, it seems very much like they didn't choose to leave the group.
Yeah.
That is point one. Like, Jihoon maybe chose to leave. Jerome and Woonggi don't seem like that they wanted to not be in a group anymore. And then the reason that they give that it's not their concept was just it didn't make sense at all. So it was so weird.
Yeah. So BlushCat, it gave us, we got to see them doing their like level test or whatever, the audition type thing. They did Bloom Bloom by the boys, and I was like, great, this is perfect. This is the exact kind of concept I thought they would want to do. But the song could have been given to them too, because I know Mnet like gave at least some of the people the songs to perform for that part,
which is such a hack.
Yeah.
That's like ridiculous.
Yeah. But we also saw Seongmin doing a lot, like the Love Me Right team, that performance. Still bright vibes. Like, overall, he didn't really do like very dark concepts on that show, but we know with TO1 Pact they've got more of like an emotional, darker sort of concept right now. So we know he can do it all.
And also, he's feeling like a funky boy.
Yeah, exactly. And Woonggi, his Feel Special serve,
he
like
literally carried the entire thing more than I've ever seen someone carry something on one of those shows ever.
Yeah. That was iconic. You know, he was bringing the vibes on that whole show up. He was, you know, his energy is so consistent, and I really respect that. Like, he's never down, like, on, you know, on his oonginess.
I think both of them can contribute a lot to like the entertainment aspect. I don't know how much other people in the group did, but I know that they really they definitely do. Like Jerome or Seongmin with all of his the way that he was handling the situation when he had to be the leader of the group on Boys Planet and the people were fighting. It's just like iconic.
Yeah. I would have liked to see them, you know, interact more on the show. I would have liked to see that, like a performance, anything from them, but that didn't happen. And, you know, I would have liked to see that. But since the show ended, we have seen them, like, you know, interact plenty of times. And it just goes to show, it's like, you know, it seemed like they enjoyed being in a group together. It seemed like even the other people, like we know Min-soo is interacting with like the original lineup. And, you know, they're like still communicating to some degree. So it seems like it wasn't for any sort of, you know, reason.
Feud.
Like, yeah, like any real reason really is the thing about this whole situation. It doesn't seem like it happened for a reason.
Yeah, it really doesn't. Like, they proved themselves in terms of concept variability, in terms of entertainment value, in terms of like you know, mood and politeness. Like, they were good at interacting with other people, you know, not even just group members. And they proved themselves with like general default skill, like, you know, picking up different songs, different choreographies and doing them. Like, so where was the problem? Where's the problem?
Yeah. And like it definitely showed how, you know, they can work well with other people. So
yeah. So so even if it was like well, we don't think that these people, like, we were planning on bringing in some new people, and these old people would definitely not be able to handle new members. It's like not even that.
So just the vibes, they were bringing the vibes up, and they were, you know, showing that they really wanted it. They were showing that they had talent. And yeah, at least now Woonggi, he's doing a lot of, like we've been saying, he's good at like entertainment sort of content on YouTube. I'm not sure what his plans are as far as being an idol. But Seongmin, like we said, he's in one Pact now, and it's a permanent group. It's supposed to be. So just if you were a fan of TOO or TO1 but didn't know about that, you can go and check out One Pact. So now I just want to kind of give a recap of all of the suspect things that happened to this group and the mismanagement in general of TO1.
That's fair.
Okay, so let's see. You know, Hanjun, he was the member that made the debut lineup, but then 2 days later, his spot was given to Jaeyoon. So that was the start of it. And then they had the delayed debut. And then they were put on a survival show right after they finished another one and hadn't even debuted yet. And that survival show was another mnet survival show. Then there was the whole mess with NCH and CJ&M, and it seemed like the members were really against that. And then the fact that everything about this group is controlled by CJ&M, you can basically think of that as mnet, which speaks for itself. Then they announced a rebrand at KCON. They took a group with a strong concept and gave them, you know, a generic concept, which once again, we're going to come back to the concepts. They had a reality show on mnet with another group who was like another debuted group, but this was when TO1 had already been a group, but it was kind of right out like the re-debut, rebranding sort of thing. So that's just kind of weird and something I've never really seen. I'm not saying it was like a horrible program or it's bad to have other groups in the same show, like, but it was just kind of weird that it happened given all the other things. There were several content pieces that were stopped without finishing, or like it seemed like they were supposed to continue and they never did, got forgotten about, like the programs on their YouTube channel. They just kind of fell off and disappeared. Some of them literally disappeared. Chihoon suddenly leaving and no explanation. Woonggi's hiatus that ended in him leaving with the other lineup changes. Seongmin and Woonggi reverted back to trainees, and the next time we see them is on BlushCat, another mnet survival show. They promoted Chan and like allowed him to have so much solo music or SoundCloud, whatever, I don't know, but they like never spoke about any of the issues surrounding him, which is just horrible. Like, why are you gonna ignore that?
Yeah.
Then one of the new members that was added left, and they announced it on their personal Instagram account. And then the sudden announcement of disbandment, and no like final content or official messages or anything like that of any kind, except for that one statement that nobody is renewing.
Yeah. And so of course we're not going to have all the information, right?
Correct.
We as civilians are not going to ever have all the information and all the background story. But it's just that sometimes, well, you know, these situations are heavily contracted, you know? People have a contract to be in a group, like under a company for a certain amount of time. This is usually, you know, this is the standard. So sometimes people are having a really bad time and they would like to leave the group, or they would like to get a new company because their group is bad or their company is bad. And so not every time that you hear people leaving a group or people getting a new company is it going to be negative. Sometimes it's positive. But from what we can tell and from what we can see, a lot of the situations in which a person left and or they got a new company, it seemed like it's not what those people wanted.
Right.
So some of the members, they might have been leaving for reasons that they were happy about. And so that's great that they got to leave, because sometimes people want to leave and they can't because of their contract. But also, like we said, you know, with Jerome and Woonggi specifically, it really seemed like they didn't want to leave. And like when they got changed to having a new company, it seems like the people really didn't want that. So yeah, we don't know everything, but from what we can gather, it seems like those things were all negative.
Right. So now just to kind of talk about the concept a little bit more. We did already say kind of a lot on the concept, but the fact that they had such a concept with like values, elements, directions, and like colors at the beginning as TOO, and then that all kind of disappeared to have, you know, the default generic sort of concepts, whether that was like the darker, powerful, stronger sort of concepts that they had right at the rebrand, or whether it was like the energetic, youthful sort of concepts that they had. It was just kind of weird how much like that was changing and like going all over the place, and it was like all the members could have suited it, so it seemed weird.
I agree with everything you're saying.
Okay.
It definitely was weird.
Yeah.
And it seems to me clearly more generic once that shift happened than the first like three things.
Yeah. And like their last release being a remake is just, you know, uninspired and unfortunate to like have that be the last thing. I mean, I have no idea. It could be like really amazing and good and perfect. I don't know. I didn't listen to it, and I'm not saying there's anything like, you know, wrong with remakes, but I'm just saying.
It kind of seems like they were like, please, please, please let us do one more thing. Like, this is really sad that we never even got to like, you know, do anything else. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we don't have anything for you. Do you want to do a remake?
Yeah. And also, World Class was a show with a lot of global contestants, like world class, okay? Like they had like trainees from a lot of different countries, but no foreign members made it into the lineup, so that was like a lost plot already. Like with
That's kind of crazy.
That's what they wanted the concept to be a global group. It wasn't happening, at least based on the lineup. So I mean, to add the 2 Japanese members later on was making more sense for that global worldly concept, I guess. But just, the concept was all over the place with this group, and it seemed like they never got a defining concept. It seemed like the concept was really in the content and the members themselves and the personality and vibe and just everything that the actual members were bringing to the group. I'm giving nothing to the company and the management.
Right. All that being said, we don't want to end today on a bad note, right?
Right.
So what is it time for?
It's time to review the good times.
Because there were some good times.
There were.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have been talking about this group at all because we would have not cared.
Right. So, as I said at the beginning, I was enjoying this group. And they had, first of all, a lot of skills that I noticed. So that was a good moment, like the good point about this group. They had a great vocal line and a great dance line. And I liked JU as a rapper, and so the skills were there, and they were very funny and memeable, stuff like that. The members seemed like they had good dynamics, and okay, the Jisoo moment in the World Class finale, I've got to bring that up again, when he was thanking JU for letting him stay with him. Like, that God. Still gets to me.
I feel like if this group were to still be around and actively promoting, or the original lineup group, around and promoting, like in now's time of needing to make shorts and TikToks all the time, they would be so good at it, because they seem really good with, like you said, memes and being iconic.
Yeah. So, like, just, their content overall, I thought it was really funny. Like, they had the zombie mystery thing, which of course was an mnet program, but it was one of their first group contents that they had that was a bigger sort of longer form content, and it was really funny. There were a lot of pretty iconic moments from that. And on their YouTube channel, they had everything that could use TOO, they included that, and I respected that. They had the 2BC, they had the fandom name Together, okay, which when they rebranded, they had to take out an O, because it was no longer TOO anymore, so Together had 2 O's in it, which I thought was really funny, but then that changed. And of course, the TOO episodes, which should have been called TOOpisodes, which is why we're calling this episode the TOOpisode.
Yes.
I would always refer to them as that because extreme missed opportunity.
Yeah, I really don't understand why they weren't called that.
Yeah. Like, I actually forget that they aren't called that, but you're probably thinking, if you know TOO or TO1, you're probably like, what's a TOOpisode? It's the TOO episodes, okay? Yeah, even, okay, like the roulette, that was like a very beginning thing. That was some of the first YouTube content I saw. Those were funny. The things when they had to say the same like country or fruit, and then they would have to do the penalty somewhere else. Those were fun, and they had a lot of fun lives. I didn't watch every single content piece. I didn't watch every single live, but I know they were doing a lot of memorable or unique like things in their lives. Like the birthday gift giving lives had some really funny moments. Everybody knows the JU, Jisoo, Woonggi live. Everybody knows it. It was really funny. And just, when they won the rookie awards, they won awards. They weren't unknown. They were getting popular. Their popularity was crushed by the people managing them.
Yeah, and on what was that show called? Road to Kingdom, when they would perform in front of all of their sunbaes, all of these other established groups, the other groups, I mean, they were nice people at the same time. It's not like they're going to be like, oh, that group sucks. But they were always so impressed by TOO and, these people that were brand new. They always thought, wow, they're doing a really great job right now. I think they lasted longer than some of the established groups, right? Like they were not the first to be eliminated.
Right.
Yeah. So they didn't even really have I suppose they had a little bit of a fan base because they were formed from a show.
Right.
But still, like, that's pretty impressive. Like, that shows that they probably had, actual skills to back up their time on the show. They weren't just like getting through because they were a really popular group or something. Like, they probably were the least popular.
Yeah. And they, like you talked about, they did some great covers. Those were definitely highlights. I'm going back to those all the time. Their I Can't Stop Me cover and their Next Level by aespa cover that they did. Those were great.
They really, really owned those covers. Like, every single member does a fantastic job.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to say they were cursed by the company content. Like, they had the signature please thing, like, as TOO, and then they did some company content again as TO1 that I really feel like was content that was supposed to continue, but it never did. So, I mean, the lineup changed before anything else happened, so I just feel like there was supposed to be more of that. But, like, company content, I feel like, can kind of curse groups sometimes in general. Like, it will be the last piece of content that is released before some sort of lineup change or something happens to the group.
Oh, God.
Yeah. But it was funny. Like, they had, like, funny moments in those. They had a lot of inside jokes and memes as the group, too. Like, I want to talk about some of those.
It's funny because even though, like, I figured that was true, that they had a lot of inside jokes, I also wanted to say that they seem like they have a lot of, like, general clippable moments. Yeah. Like, I know I didn't see very many full pieces of content from them, but even without having that, like, backstory, I could see a lot of different clips, like, that you would share with me. And so, like, it was still really funny. Like, a lot of the different programs that you've mentioned, I've seen, like, a funny moment from them, even though I haven't seen the whole thing, and it still works. Like, you don't have to know, like, the whole thing to still get, like, a really funny part from it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, well, you'd have to watch the whole episode.
Yeah. So yeah, I do want to, like, just talk about some of those just to, remember the good times.
Oh, I know one of them.
Okay. What is it?
No, you gotta say it. I can't take it from you, but I'm like, I know you're gonna say that.
Okay. I do just want to bring up the fact, though, because I never mentioned it, but JU, he was one of my favorite members too. Like, my favorite members were Seongmin, Jerome, JU, and Woonggi. They were my top 3. Yeah, I said it.
And they were, like, each other's top 3 too, right?
Probably.
Like, did they really, like, weren't they all good friends?
Yeah.
Or, like, they did a lot of content together. I don't know, because they were probably all good friends, but
yeah. But he's in the military now, so that's just that was, like, such a shock. So that's what he's up to. But anyway, so yeah, some of the memes, jokes that they had, attention bow, or, like, attention sorry together, is something Woonggi would always do. I don't even know if, like, current fans would know about these things, so that's another reason I kind of want to bring them up. He would always, like, put his arm out, and then he'd be like, attention, bow, and, like, it was really funny. Welsh Corgi, I gotta talk about that. That was something that Seongmin would say all the time, It was really funny. He even had the Welsh Corgi rap. But did that continue? No, obviously not, because he left.
Oh, God. Okay, and the most iconic one?
I don't know. The other ones that I was, I can think of, like Magnolia was a meme in itself.
Oh, yeah.
Woonggi, he still does this. He would always speak or write in like Romanized Korean. Like, he would always extra pronounce and stuff like that. And it was really funny. And it was, a lot of Woonggi led stuff, which again, respect, very Woonggi vibe. He would always do fake group introductions like Pizza is Mine, or even during the Jisoo JU Woonggi Live, they had a fake little introduction that they did, and that is the rocket on my backpack part. Like, that rap, I got a rocket on my backpack, that is like the best moment out of all of them. And a lot of people could know that because that live was so iconic. So and like he would say lunchtime as a group, like it would be like 12 o'clock, hello, we are lunchtime. Like, it was funny.
So when you said everyone knows the Jerome JU Woonggi live,
Jisoo
Jerome
Jisoo JU Woonggi.
Oh, so that's the one you talked about earlier. You said everyone knows it, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know it, but that's the rocket on my backpack one.
Yes.
So then, yes, I know at least that. So everyone knows it.
Like, they were playing with the filters, and they kept accidentally turning the camera around so it would expose the staff that were like sitting right there, and it was like really funny. And then they were like smacking their head against the wall in the back by accident because they were laughing so hard. Like, it's just really funny.
Good times all around is what I would say if there were good times all around, but there definitely were not. They were bad times all around, but let's just remember the good times.
Let's remember the good times, everyone, okay? That's all that we've got for today, and, that's probably all we're going to have. Just, at least for now, let's stay hopeful. Let's, we can look at One Pact. We'll probably talk about One Pact more, and we'll have to just see what the other members are doing. Minsu, he has a YouTube channel, so you can go and subscribe if you're interested in that. I don't know what any of the other members are doing, but,
Maybe some of them are, resetting, like going to do their military service right now because then they're going to, be an idol after. Maybe some of them are traumatized from this whole experience and they don't want to be an idol anymore. We don't know. Only time will tell.
Right.
But, everyone just keep your spirits up.
Yeah. So, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like the video on YouTube, subscribe to the BlushCat channel, and turn on notifications. You can go ahead and leave us a comment and reminisce. Share your favorite TOO, TO1. You can even share your favorite New Batch TO1 moments with us. Tell us some content to check out with the new members, or, something. I don't know. Just, let's keep it positive for this group, okay?
They deserve that.
Yeah, they deserve that. And yeah.
Thank you guys so much for going through this journey with us.
This has been Orchestra.
And me. Bye.
Meow, 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 meow.